Lucy, I'm curious as to had you heard about this book, or did you select this for a particular reason?
I like this book a lot. Other people brought up wanting to read it for book club, and I was like, I already read it. I enjoyed it. I'll read it again. It does have a lot of things. I like it a lot for a lot of different reasons. So I will say that. I do think it'll generate a good discussion, which is part of why I helped nominate it, but it wasn't my initial pick, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's like somebody else wanted to read it. I was like, it is really good. I do want to hear what people think about it. So I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody remember who did nominate it?
Juniper did.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It came up in conversation. Well, I asked her if I would be seeing her, and she said no, she's working in North Carolina today.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, and she's like, it sucks because I suggested the book. And I was
Hopefully
like,
she'll share her thoughts about the book soon.
Yeah.
Because I'd be curious why she picked. You could ask her, why did you pick it? And like, how do you think the discussion went? Do you think I did a bad job with the questions?
Who's recording the session?
I am.
Oh, good. So she can watch the recording.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't know you were a narc, Jolie.
Well, I almost said something. Yeah, I'm not going to say that either.
You can insult me. It's fine.
Canadian narcs are totally different, though.
Are they?
Well, apparently, I was going to say
smells the same whichever country you're in.
No, yeah, I was going to say, actually, the RCMP are much worse, and like, we treat the Indigenous folks just as poorly as Black folk are treated in the United States. So, no, I guess we're not different at all. Mm-hmm.
Really, we should focus on the things that unite us.
Canadians are pretty mean to Native Americans too. So
let's
not forget that.
It's
terrible. Yeah, they're kind of dropping the ball there.
Yeah. Our government.
I mean, they'll be very polite when they murder you, I'm sure.
But we gave you blankets. Were you not warm?
Oh, jeez.
I feel like it'd be more like they're stabbing you and be like, so sorry. Oh, geez, so sorry about that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still going to stab you.
Now who's playing into gross stereotypes, Lucy?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Being Midwestern and apologetic, I can.
Shall we get back to the book?
Yeah.
Yes,
if
let
you
us start.
insist, Mike.
All right.
So, yeah.
So Lucy, you're the guest host, so you get to facilitate.
Yeah. This book is Upgrade Soul by Ezra Claytan Daniels, and he had like a really interesting life. Like, I was surprised because some comic book artists and authors, like, they're just like, I love comic books all my life and that's all I've ever done. And you're like, okay. But he, I don't know if anybody looked up any of the interviews about him, but it's really interesting because, like, I mean, of course he was interested in comic books at a young age, but also he got a job doing like drawing kind of medical evidence and for court cases, for medical malpractice court cases.
Whoa. So
he was like, yeah, I was shocked. I was like, man, he's like really, really good at anatomy then, probably because of that. And then the other thing too, like he did, he worked like with a geneticist and something else to work on this book.
Damn.
And like he's been working on this book since he was 20 off and on, because he got the idea when he was really young, but he was like, this is kind of too sophisticated for me. I'm just going to kind of sit on this for now. But yeah, he's a really, really interesting guy. Like, I highly recommend you look into him. And there's probably still some things that I missed about him. Yeah, I was shocked. And like, also, he's mixed race. So I'm sure that adds some of like, because he always felt like he didn't really quite belong, especially since his parents separated. And like his mom, I can't remember, his mom is white and she moved pretty far away, like away from like his dad's side of the family. So he felt like he like kind of lost a lot of like his Black culture and Black history because of that. And I thought that was really interesting too. And so we always kind of felt like, where do I fit in? Where do I belong? Who am I? I just thought that was neat. He's a really cool, nice guy. Really great. So I highly recommend reading or interviews with him, reading more of his stuff. I think he's a good artist. Let me think if there's anything else.
Your score.
I mean, he's obviously... Oh, my score.
Obviously.
I think I want to say, let's say 8.5 for both. I might change it later, but for art and story, we'll say 8.5 for now. We'll see how it goes. Who wants to go next? Any volunteers?
Just force someone, Lucy.
Yeah, popcorn them.
In your most dulcet
in your sex worker voice.
Yes, that's what I was getting at.
Press 1 to give your score now. I don't know. Alex, go. Do it.
I'll give it also give it an 8.5. I love the story. That was a really interesting, complex story with a lot to unpack, and I love the artwork. I thought the artwork really fit. I just love the artwork. So yeah, how about Patrick?
We'll start with an 8 for now. Gotta give it room to grow. I really like this story. I really liked how it explored this concept in this way, because I think like in this type of trope genre, like we always see it as like the distinction between like normal people and like perfect, beautiful people. But here it's interesting because it's not really the contrast that they're talking about. So that's very interesting to me. I really like the art as well, because I'm a sucker for this kind of quirky stuff. So that was fantastic. And Jolie looks like ready and raring to go, so she should go next.
Thanks, Patrick. I too will let it gestate and give it.
Like the clone should have.
I mean, they naturally halted themselves, which is strange, but we'll talk more about that later.
All right.
7.8. I'll give it a little more room than Patrick, but a tiny bit. I too love the art. We actually read this for the Vault of Midnight comic book club. I don't know if Carlos remembers that.
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
I already know. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it, and I was like, wait a second. I think we've read this book before. So yes. And I remember not really liking it back then. But then
really?
Yeah, like I
blame
like,
that group. It was that group, right, Jolie? That was why. That was why.
It was 100% Miles. I hope you're watching. I think I wasn't in like a headspace for it when I read it, but I read it this time and I was like, wait. This is like exactly the type of weird, maybe science fiction I like, is like, and body, like total body horror. Like, this is the kind. Because it kind of was like a horror story, but like a good one, not like a gory, gross one. So yeah. I pick Mike Fritsch.
Thanks, Jolie. I don't know. I think I'm just gonna give this a 9. This is like really good in a whole different kind of way. The artwork is phenomenal. The coloring is phenomenal. I don't think I've ever read a graphic novel that had Black people in it. They actually showed how this side of their hand is colored different than this side of their hand. Their bone structure, everything. The artwork is just phenomenal. And the story, I have to say, I read this before I would go to bed every night, and it kept me up after I put it down. Like, it really is so disturbing, and in a good way. So how about Oliver next?
I enjoyed this book quite a bit. It's a very heavy read, as I'm sure most of us will agree. But I think it has a lot of interesting things to say about the ways that people kind of like view and treat human bodies, and the way that we often view disability specifically. I think it has interesting things to say about that. I don't know if it entirely sticks the landing. I'm still ruminating on that. But I do appreciate that it at least, tried to tackle those things. So I think for me, it's like I think it's like a solid 8.5. I'm excited to talk about it in more detail. And I see that Mr. Keith has joined us. So why don't we jump to you? What's your score? I hope you had a nice nap.
I'll give it an 8.5. It was rudely interrupted.
Whoa.
Maybe you should just put your phone on D&D when you're sleeping.
Oh, he's got an autograph.
Oh, whoa.
Oh,
shit. Yeah.
Oh, what do you think you're like a? Never mind.
The Uber fan.
Cool. Yeah, you think you're an Uber fan or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I give it an 8.5. I really enjoyed it. It's a very sad story. It's hard to get through at points, but I don't think that it's there's a lot that I liked about it. I didn't even know that he was an anatomist. So that makes a lot of sense, and why he, probably thinks about these things a lot. But yeah, no, it makes sense that, that the story was ruminating with him for a number of years. So anyhow, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Who has it gone? Carlos.
I really like this book. I think one of the most interesting parts to me that hasn't been mentioned is the contrast between the clones, like sort of how they progress as characters and what they do and like what they become. I think the artwork is really fantastic. I was just flipping through and like it makes sense that he's an anatomy artist and that he can pull on the full range of gruesome. Like I was just flipping past the part where he crushes the doctor's jaw. Like, oh, Jesus. I'll give it a pair of 8s. I also think that the artwork is really well done, and sort of the pacing of it and the different ways of playing with contrasting images is really interesting in the book.
All right.
And that's, who hasn't gone yet?
I think Sean.
Sean, go ahead.
Hello. Does this work?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll give it a 9 for the story and then a 9 for the art that's not the faces. I really did not like his drawing of the faces, except for the potato people. I like their faces.
He drew the potato people's faces twice, so maybe that's why.
Twice.
Really?
He initially drew them. He initially drew it, hated it, redrew all the potato faces when he was almost done with the comic.
Okay.
So that's funny. Those were the most worked on.
So I mean, it's like a jab at Potato Head, right? That's what we're supposed to like reference there?
I think they just upped a fetus.
Yeah, I think it's just like, what if there were people that looked like fetuses?
Ah, all right.
Yeah, it's just perma fetus.
So
well, I can discuss it later because he did mention it in a interview.
So I'm just gonna jump right into it. On page 113, like the monitor is like they gave it like doll hands and like a hat.
That was funny.
Is that just like a quirky thing?
Yeah, it's just like a
implication. Yeah. Like I was trying to like, what does that mean? Does it have a deeper meaning, or is it just quirky?
I think they were just
trying to make it a fun office.
All right.
Also, you know, they have a chance to fuck with their boss, like with her having no idea that they are fucking with her. So.
Are you telling me my employees are doing that to me when I'm just kidding?
Now I'm certain that all my students are doing it to me,
actually. Right. Yeah. You have doll hands.
Oh. Yeah, I was wondering about that. So you just think they're just yanking her chain there, eh?
Yeah, because at first when they introduced the character, and he's talking to her, what's his name? Kenton? Yeah, when he's talking to her, you're like, oh God, she's deformed too? No, he's just glued doll hands to a TV because he hates her. And she's never around, so she'll never know.
Yeah. That is pretty passive aggressive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fits his character well.
It's kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, can I mention something and just say this before we get into discussing the story and the art more? I discovered, and I'm sure Lucy already knows this, there's a app that has
There is.
that has the story. Let me see if I can. And you just like flip through it, and it has music and sound effects.
Yep.
Oh.
Did anybody get the app or no?
I did. I didn't get the whole
Hey.
thing. Just the first chapter is free, but it's like three-dimensional too. You can like move it and it'll show you all sorts of things, and it's really phenomenal. So if you get a chance to download that for your tablet or your phone, I don't know if it works on a phone, but for the iPad,
I think it's only for Apple products, and that's why I didn't get it. Otherwise, I would have got it.
Is it like a homegrown thing that he did?
Yeah, he started.
He did. When he was making the comic, he made it in layers with the idea of it being an app later on.
Okay.
Yeah, so he collaborated with some guy who helped him with the three-dimensional aspect, and then he collaborated with a musician who wrote the sound effects and the score for it.
Yep, and it was all to midnight. I believe you could buy the soundtrack at one point. I'm sure it's available other places too.
It is vinyl.
It is like a whole different creepy experience of reading the story. Just because it kind of controls a little bit the pacing and how it's presented, and that you can't see the whole page at once. Basically, it's broken up panel by panel, so it's a whole different kind of experience. Sorry, Jolie, that you don't have an iPad, I guess, eh?
I
do.
Not Jolie, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, the first chapter is free. You don't have to pay for the first chapter, and you'll just get a feel for what it can do.
I think it's also on YouTube. I believe I watched the YouTube playing of it. Or maybe somebody ripped it to YouTube, but that's how I saw the first chapter of it, and I was like, oh, this is really neat, and the music works really well with it.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear the music, what kind of like ambient music they set this to, because it feels like very like Fincher, maybe Nine Inch Nails, like Trent Reznor's soundtrack.
Yes.
It reminds me, I don't know if any of you guys are going to be like, I know what that is. There's like a very specific album that Mike Patton and some of the members of the Melvins did. I think it's called Delirium Concordia by Phantomus. It reminded me of that a lot. And that album is all about like a surgery gone wrong. So just, if you want to listen to something that's similar, that's what I would recommend music-wise.
Do we ever like just talk about what happens in like, I mean, we all know what happens, assuming we've all read it, but like, do we ever just like recap to make sure we're all on the same page here?
No, but we can.
Okay.
Did you have a particular question that
I'm gonna say, does that answer my one question about the time, the nonlinear structure being confusing?
I guess we can start there.
My confusion isn't so much like, so is the fact that it resulted in this like something built into the design, or did something go wrong?
So I kind of interpreted it, and I don't know if this is how people interpreted it. My thought is that like their plan, like the scientist's plan originally, was basically they were going to clone these two old people, and then like kill the originals,
right?
And then the two clones would like take over.
Right.
And they knew the whole time, like the old people thought it was going to be like some kind of a like brain transfer thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's never what it was going to be, and the scientists knew that, and their plan was going to be to just like kill the old people, so that way the world would never find out.
No, but I mean,
That
like,
was my read on it.
but the fact that it's a fetus rather than a supermodel, like, was that like a built-in flaw, or did something go horribly wrong?
I think something went wrong.
Something went
Something
wrong.
went wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
They
the
were
dog,
like, yeah.
the dog that they did, the original dog was deformed, and when they replicated the dog came out perfect.
I see.
And that gave them the confidence to try it with a human being, and then it just went off the rails.
I see.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Like, it was not the plan for them to come out being like a fetus.
I mean, I think. Go
So
ahead.
the scientists' motivation in doing all that, right, was to replace his sister with a perfect version of his sister. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. To answer Lucy's question about the nonlinear nature of the book, I think it's pretty successful. Like, even though the coloring it doesn't really differ too much, the artist is skilled enough in the way that they draw that you can tell.
Okay.
And the storytelling is I think it's really well written, and it's well written enough that you know that it's a different part of the timeline. Like, even though it's
changes, your appearance changes, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely kind of like the main sort of signifier, and it's definitely like the coloring is a little more like washed out, kind of sepia sort of a thing. I think it mostly works. I think it was a little confusing early on. I think mostly you sort of figure it out. I think maybe they could have done like a little more to clarify what exactly was happening, maybe like adding like small boxes saying like what exactly the date is, but I don't know.
I think that's sort of like, but I think it's supposed to sort of represent their experience of it too, like both, like especially the clones' experience, because they have like perfect recall. Like, yeah, they're living outside, especially the clones are living outside of timelines as well, because they have memories that are not their own. It's really a question of, does that mean, are they actually not their own? I'm not sure if that's an interesting question or just sort of an academic question. But I do think it sort of does represent like that mixing of timelines. Like the whole process for Molly and Hank and Manuela and Henry is also like sort of confusing. It's sort of, I don't know. For me, it seems like part of characterization, like putting yourself in their shoes.
I really like that interpretation. A lot of people online were complaining about not liking the nonlinearity of it, so that's part of why I brought it up.
I think it's great. Like, it built a sense of tension and mystery. Like, I think it's one of the reasons why I was so into the narrative. Is like it doesn't give away the game so early on in the story.
Right.
It makes it more shocking when you figure it out. There's like, oh my God, this is what's been going on all this time.
Yeah, it like naturally, I feel like it naturally builds on it. I'd be interested in reading those thoughts that you saw, Lucy. Like, really, what problem could you have had with it?
Yeah.
Could you like do you remember any of them?
Go to Goodreads and Amazon.com reviews, and you can find a bunch of them, because I was like, what do people not like? And I'm like,
I did skim the Goodreads reviews, and there were a lot of them were positive, but there were some that were like, this is confusing, and there's these weird potato people. I don't like this book.
Yeah, that was the main complaints. Like, it was so confusing and so slow. So I just want to know what you guys thought. That was
not understanding things confuses and angers me.
Pitchforks for everybody.
Yeah.
That's so sad. All right, what do we got next?
Can I just say that I love how the assistant woman, whose name I can't recall, the blonde lady character,
It's a
apparently
gem.
started her work life as a debate coach. I felt represented and seen, so that was fantastic. I
Oh,
would just like to point that out. And as also following my career trajectory, I mean, she's working as some kind of admin assistant, so I feel very seen and heard. Thank you, Lucy.
So maybe just like her, you'll run off with some, hunk who maybe that's
I apparently I have, and now we live here.
I was gonna say you kind of did.
is that your career trajectory?
Yeah, there you go. There was no creepy science though,
Aw,
as far as I
No.
know.
you like
Well,
kind of ripped off your life story.
Yeah.
Don't go in the basement.
Oh.
you can have little creepy science as a treat.
I wish I could.
You can. You
That's
can.
one of the things I'm like obsessed with medical stuff, especially when it goes wrong. So that's another part of why I really like this book. Like, yeah, creepy medical stuff. This is up my alley. And like weird fringe surgeries. Like, I love it. This is my jam.
Yeah, there's definitely a thing. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Lucy, do you like looking at those before and after plastic surgery disasters? You know,
Yeah.
celebrities
Well,
and
I
all
don't. The disasters kind of make me sad. Like, I think it's more fun to go to the actual plastic surgeon's website and see what they think was a success, because sometimes it really wasn't. But they're like, "This is perfect." I'm like, "Is this what you think is perfect?" I don't know about that. So like, that's more entertaining to me than like the TV shows they have of like, I rather like see what the surgeons say for themselves. Or like how they do it. Like, it's kind of fascinating. Like, I miss when TLC would do those operation shows. That was good times.
Mhm.
It's a long time ago now. It was way before Honey Boo Boo.
You got to see Mrs. Pimple Popper, I think. Doctor.
Oh, I love
She's-
Dr. Pepper.
Oh my god. I loved so much that, like, I've seen a couple of clips, but I've never seen the whole thing. But it's kind of great because, like, all the staff will get all excited, like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this! We'll never see this again." They get all excited. It's really cute. It's kind of wholesome for a pimple popper show.
And then they surgically remove a cyst.
Yep, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
The most wholesome, disgusting show.
So I'm curious what people think about the difference between Henry and Manuela's ends, or sort of like how they ended up. Like, what is going on there in the story? Because I have my opinions, but I'm interested in what people have to say.
Oh, I wanted to, in clarifying the story, how exactly did Manuela die? I remember like she was in maybe some dark box or something, and there was some fingers going down the glass or something. I didn't understand like how she wound up in there, what her motivation. I mean, did somebody knock her off? I
think she killed
It seems like
herself.
she killed herself to
Why was
Yeah.
that?
to allow her original to live, because if there's two of them around at the same time, it creates that feedback loop in their brains
Okay.
that causes headaches and presumably would cause the original's condition to deteriorate.
Yeah, at the end.
Well, I thought both of them, they both deteriorated as they got further apart, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yes. Oh, that's what happened to him. Yeah.
Yeah, at the end, Molly found a diary that Manuela had written, in which it revealed that she knew how to solve the problem, which makes me think she knew that if she died then, it could save Molly. But I think she chose to die.
So she had like a self-sacrifice type of ending, which is morally superior, I guess, than Henry's demise, which was just a bad ending.
I suppose it would depend on who you talk to, Mike.
Yeah, because it seems like okay, so their proximity affected each other, where and this is something that not Manuela Molly wouldn't have known because she's not Manuela. So it's and it's just like just a series of words, but Molly, in order to rid herself of the headaches, needed to be close to Manuela. But it seems like, according to this little diary entry that Manuela wrote down, that the proximity worsened her condition and her evolution.
Mm.
Something about the fidelity, and then it ends. Echo becomes disruptively distorted with distance. Garth, our runaway hunk, were unable to see this or see is that this can be averted. And then that's probably where she reads the conclusion. It cuts off, but I think Manuela's conclusion is this can be averted by getting rid of the clones. That's what I assumed. But I'm with Mike where when it happened, I was very confused. When suddenly all of the alarms in the joint were going off and they're like running to the lab and there seemed to be one of the clones inside a box burning to death. I was like, wait, where did this come from? It seemed very sudden.
Yeah, a lot of the book is like that, where because of the time, sequence and you don't find out about what something means until like much later. Like the first time that the doctor's sister's introduced when he's talking to her on the other side of the door, it's all very mysterious and spooky.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next scene is like her talking to the picture on the wall, and it's like, what's that all about? And then later you find out like, oh, well, this is why, and everything fits together. I think this book is like so worthy of like a second and a third read.
Yeah.
It's just great that way because you can go back and enjoy it even more the next time and really appreciate all the different complexities of it.
That final scene between the young woman and her sister, heartbreaking, legit heartbreaking. So something that I think is like kind of like really interesting about this book is kind of like how it like deals with topics around like disability and kind of the like relationship like people have with our own bodies and like the bodies of other people, and like how the perception of that can like influence people's lives. Like I think we were talking about like what happened with these people looking like these these clones coming out looking like weird potato people, and I think from like a thematic like point of view, it comes down to trying to sort of challenge like those innate assumptions about like what a super person, because they are sort of these like superhuman people. They have enhanced like strength and intelligence and all these things, and kind of challenging those innate assumptions of that necessarily coinciding with like sort of stereotypical views on beauty and things like that. And I think kind of it also sort of ties in with the sister and like what her whole thing is. So I'm curious to hear kind of what people's like thoughts on all that are.
Yeah, I think that was one of the questions on the list. I can't remember which number, but I saw him. That was what he wanted to get across with this book. He wanted people to think about that, which like. Yeah, I think it comes through pretty well. He's like other people mentioned, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Mike Fritch said that he appreciated that they're not like horrific. Like you have like the other thing too is he was talking about how when Ezra, the author, talking about how when he was younger he was reading a book on like circus freaks basically, but it was like very gentle and humanistic portrayal of them. So I think it like set a good foundation. Like you need to like have more of an open mind with how people are, other than like just how they look. And unfortunately, a lot of times in society, like there's such a heavy emphasis on looks that outweighs so many other things. And I do like that these characters are very nuanced, so that there's like they're all pretty flawed in their own way. So there's like ugly things inside of them. It doesn't matter what they look like on the outside. They still have beauty and ugliness inside them as well. So I like that came through in the book. And I do like too. I really like how he aged the characters. I thought that was really great. Like, it bothers me in comic books. Like, I didn't realize until lately, like not too terribly long ago, that like the reason why a lot of women look the same in comics is because they learn how to draw one woman. And they draw the same woman over and over and over again. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. There's not really a lot of diversity in looks, mostly because of lazy artists. Because like drawing people is hard, and then drawing different shapes of people, and like each time learning how like a different body moves, it's a lot of work. I'm like, okay, that makes more sense, but also there's like no diversity hardly at all in like how people look in comics, and then especially with other media. But like it sucks. Like even in my imaginary comic book world, like everybody kind of looks the same.
Yeah,
But
and
I really appreciate it.
A lot of people who, I just want to add, who draw comics usually have a vested interest in comics and learn from seeing comics instead of modeling, like many artists should continue to do. They continue to draw the same woman, model the same features and same musculature, and it's annoying.
It is.
I remember
the whole 90s era.
I
Jim Lee.
An interesting aspect of that kind of like is related to the body shapes and things like that. In the first chapter, you get to the end of the chapter, you know, you're introduced to the potato people, and you're like you kind of like starting to wrap your head around how different they look, and you know, your first impression, or mine was, it's like, oh, they're like monsters, you know, and then you see like she's in the bed in the dark, and the door opens up, and this thing comes through, and you see the hand come over the edge of the bed, right?
Yeah.
And then you see it come back, and the potato lady is like terrified. She's because this monster's coming to get her, right?
And it's just Molly.
And it's just Molly. It's just an old lady. And it was just like such a like it's such messes up with your expectations, right? Because it's like, so the monster thinks that there are monsters out there, and it's just a regular looking old woman.
Yeah.
I love that.
She did look really spooky though in those panels, to be fair.
Yes, she did. I did. Is it safe to assume that the procedure sapped some of their youthful essence?
Yeah, like, there's a cost to it. There's a physical cost to it.
I just took it to mean like the natural progression of time.
Yeah.
We didn't know how long they were like in their cocoon or whatever.
I think they said 8 weeks, I think, right?
Okay.
But I thought that they were there for like a couple years. Because like the
I did too.
Yeah.
I took it to mean this took years, and there were other failed clones, and these were like the most successful they had thus far. I took it to mean it took a while to get to even this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the granddaughter is older in the last when she returned. They're like, it's been too long. You know, it's to make some references.
I think they said a year.
Oh yeah, it is just a year. Well,
oh wow. Whoops, never mind.
And then she comes back and she is restored at the end. You know, she's able to walk around.
Yeah. Like she looks much healthier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's kind of back to, I wouldn't say where she was at the beginning. You know, like not the beginning, but like chronologically, one of the first stories when they're talking about considering this. Yeah, she definitely looks older in that, but.
Maybe it has like, maybe it's supposed to be like parallel, like another question, like parallels between like having a parasitic twin and how like it will kind of zap the energy of the other twin. And like maybe that was what they were trying to get at with that. Like, the original Hank and Molly, where like their energy was getting zapped by their clones.
Yeah, that
Maybe
whole
that
idea of
kind of-
parasitic twins like appears over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I liked when we're talking about the whole idea of what's normal looking, are they monsters, potatoes, whatever they are, and Henry makes ears for himself, and he has a whole conversation about how he's like, you may think that it's to look more like you, but it's actually very like, you know, it's very utilitarian. I want to hear like I used to be able to, and it's the cochlea is a very like, or the shape is very functional. I'm like, I appreciate this dude so much. He's just up there molding ears for himself because he wants to. He's like, look, I got memories. I'm like gaining muscle mass. He's like freakishly strong again, and he just wants to. Now he wants to hear the world around him, just like
he was
he
a
used
much
to.
more sensory type of clone than Molly was.
Yeah.
Or Manuela.
Sensory in more ways than one.
What's that, Oliver?
I said sensory in more ways than one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he was like he wanted to have sex, and I love that whole scene where he's like in the bedroom with her. He's like laying on the bed, you know, and he's kind of like posing, and then one scene he's like looking over at his crotch and like poking at it, and I just that whole scene was just absolutely hilarious to me.
Yeah,
I just love it.
Pretty funny.
He seemed to become comfortable in like a visible way to us, like very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he acclimated really quickly to like his clone life. The clone did, and Manuela did not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think like she, like, I don't know, there are different types of intelligences, right? And I think is sort of like, you know, she has academic intelligence, but also sort of like an emotional intelligence. She realizes like the cost of like everything that's happened, or that's like what it seems to me. And she almost moves towards, I don't know, like a selfless, like an absolute selflessness. Like there's that really great conversation where she talks about how like she's not jealous of Henry at all. Like, and sort of like, why would she be?
Right.
And so sort of, you know, like doing all these emotional computations and like the, I don't know, sort of the inevitable conclusion that she came to is that like the most just thing, or like the thing that would be best for everybody, I think, including like Dell, right? Like, I think that's a big part of it. Like, I think that conversation happens right before she dies or she kills herself, the conversation with the niece, because it's like, you know, like, what is the best thing for this child? Is like weird, like potato aunt that like can't ever be in public, or to have access to her actual aunt.
Yeah, like I felt like too, she had all these memories of being around Molly and playing with her, and she's like I felt like she wanted a piece of her to be able to be with Molly again and play with Molly again. So that's part of, like, I took it to mean that like family was the real impetus to that action. I felt like she wanted to let Molly rejoin her family.
Oh, she was the good clone. Clearly Henry was the evil clone.
I don't think Henry was like, I don't think he was evil necessarily. I mean, he kind of was. Like he does evil things, but
he's not evil.
I think
there's different sides to all of us.
I think he is acting in a way that he sees as being necessary, like for his own survival. I think he does the things that he does because he feels that otherwise he is going to get killed because because he knows that his existence is inconvenient and it is messy and it is something that a lot of people would prefer was swept under the rug. I think he understands this, and he believes that the things he's doing are necessary to preserve his own survival.
Yeah, and at one point did you
like
say
a lot of I was just gonna say real quick, there's like a lot of it in Henry. Like a lot. He's very much it driven. But anyway, what were you gonna say, Keith?
at one point they say, there's a lot about this that's really weird. I think normal morality is going to go out the window, and people are just going to have a hard time with this no matter what. So, and I think that he kind of embraces that.
I mean, the whole concept of like having your own clone is kind of morally ambiguous.
I think the worst thing he did was walk away when Henry tripped on the stairs.
Oh, Hank, yeah. And was like bleeding.
Yeah. And it's like, well, I didn't push you. Best of luck.
Well, messes up his brother too.
Yeah.
He crushes the scientist's jaw. That was turning him into a monster.
Yeah.
Well, the scientist said he was
The
going to
scientist was
euthanize
literally
him.
talking about like euthanizing him.
Yeah.
I don't blame him for that.
No. The scientist was being very clinical and candid with him. It's like
I'm like, yeah, it's so dumb. Why would
like
you do that?
shush, just go to sleep forever.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think about the sister all of a sudden becoming the most competent character in the story?
I love that. I have thoughts about that, but if other people want to jump in first.
Sister?
It made me so happy too. Like I liked her character arc quite a bit.
So I really liked the arc with the sister, and it was one of my favorite things about the book, because I think early on she's treated in this very sort of infantilized way, where she like early on you meet her and she seems almost kind of childlike, and I think there's sort of a trope in media of like disabled characters being childlike. I'm thinking of like Sloth from the Goonies, that kind of thing. And I think they're sort of invoking like a similar thing here, where early on she's kind of very childlike and she communicates in like very short, simple sentences. And I think as the story goes on, they deliberately invoke those tropes so that they can then like subvert them, and she like very quickly like matures and becomes easily kind of one of the most like eloquent and competent members of like the whole cast of characters. And she does like not good things, but none of the characters in this book really do. So I really enjoyed like the way this book kind of portrays her.
Molly and Manuela seem to end the book without a lot of the bad colors in their ledger, I feel like.
Yeah, they do come across the best in the book. I'll agree with that.
True. That's true.
Oh, but so like, what is her disability though? Like, I keep like we keep saying she's disabled, but what? Beyond like the sister. So like,
Lena.
Lena. I mean, there's the
she
physical
was a
deformity.
conjoined twin.
Right.
She has like a piece of her brain missing. I don't know. They don't really go into the details of what that could entail.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair though, when this is my medical nerd coming out, if you do have brain surgery when you're very, very young, you can have people will take like half your brain out. Like that's what Dr. Carson was really good at when he was a neurosurgeon, is like taking parts of your brain out to get to lessen epilepsy problems. So when you're very young, you can get away with like taking a big chunk of your brain out, and you can be just fine because your brain is so plastic at that point. So she might be completely fine. The only thing that could be wrong with her is just she's missing like part of her skull and her head's weird shaped. Like that could be all that's wrong with her.
Like half of her body.
Because she was Yeah, well, that's true. And the other thing too is like because she was a conjoined twin, maybe they kind of treat her like part of her is missing, because like that was another thing. Like there was the idea of like the soul being kind of split, and maybe like I felt like they were kind of treating her like her soul was also split. And then as the book went on, like I feel like she felt more like a whole person.
Yeah,
I
like,
don't
'cause
know if it's because
like it's not at all clear to me if like her brother's motivation for doing all of this is that, you know, there was an actual, and this sounds horrid, but I think like there's an actual disability to be fixed, or is it
oh
like,
yeah, I don't think there was. I
or
think
like
he was
or
just
does she just look like
overprotective for no good
like she
reason.
doesn't look normal, you know, scare quotes normal, right? And therefore this is a thing that needs to be fixed, which leads him into all of this gray area
Well,
nonsense.
Well, she
that's the
also.
other. Oh wait, what were you gonna say?
Well, she's also very self-conscious. I mean, like,
Well,
you know,
that
she's
yes,
hiding
that
away. Yeah.
right, and because like it seems like the only thing that's changed between who she is before and so the only thing that seems to have made her arc develop is, you know, she went through this experience of, oh but gosh, like killing a person, which to be fair might lend you the confidence that you were missing before.
Everyone should try it.
Okay.
Everyone should try it. Which led her to become this person, right? There was no like physical fix or whatever that she had to undergo to become that person. So is it? So is her disability?
I interpret it differently.
Okay, like what?
So
or no, let's put it generously, right? So she had a chance to sort of make her own choices. So she had a chance to sort of experience her own agency in terms of like starting this relationship with the male potato. Is it Hank or Henry?
Henry.
The male potato.
Male potato.
Mr. Potato Head.
Mr. Potato Head. So she
Male Potato is my my FetLife profile name.
So she was able to experience that, which could, you know, gave her sort of this confidence boost to be like the HBIC now in the facility. But it seems like that's not a disability thing, right?
Well, that's the other thing. Like, I think it's really, I'm glad that they didn't really point out and underline that she had a disability, because sometimes when you're growing up and maybe she was really sickly as a kid, and then her parents and her brother all got really used to trying to like section her off and protect her because she was so sickly as a kid, and maybe she's still sickly now, and like maybe she had to go through like she probably did, because this happens a lot with conjoined twins where they have to go through tons of surgery growing up. So you have to be very careful that they don't get infections, and you have to watch them all the time. And like they get in this habit of treating her in a certain way, even though it's not really true at all. It's her as an adult, because like you said, she doesn't show any really signs of disability. Like she seems to be really eloquent and get along like in the world and be able to like hold her own. It's just unfortunate like that her ticket out of that situation was like so bleak, you know?
Yeah, it was
anyway,
like,
that's how I interpret it.
I think it like feeds like one of the themes of the book too is like we keep trying to fix things that do these things really need fixing? Like,
yeah,
like, is she this person that needs to be fixed?
So I think,
oh yeah,
or is it like we just need to sort of
interesting.
change our relationship to her, right?
right.
As a person, like.
Oh yeah, I love
We need to
that
change our
aspect.
perception of her. She doesn't need to be fixed.
Remember the part where the scientist presents to Molly and Hank the little screen that has like a silhouette of a.
Oh yeah, this is what you're gonna look like.
Version.
Right.
Yeah, you're gonna look this good.
Like this.
And look at all these other features that you're gonna have.
Right.
So there's this like subjective value set on, you know, what's the ideal human being, not really recognizing that to be human means to navigate both like things that you do well and things that you struggle with, and the empathy that we develop toward others, because, you know, we have to live within our own limitations. I mean, all that gets thrown out the window if you're just like thinking, okay, well, the ideal person looks this way, and so we're going to change you from this into that. And it's the same thing that the scientist is trying to apply to a sister, and the same thing he's trying to apply to a dog, as if somebody that isn't ideal is like a subhuman, that they're flawed. The whole
Absolutely.
eugenics thing kind of like fits into this, you know, the
Mhm.
tweaking, you know, making babies and manipulating the genes and all. Very, very disturbing in that way.
And to go back to the question
Yeah.
Carlos asked like forever ago, I think that kind of to me illuminates like why both of the clones ended the way they did. So it seems like Manuela, Molly, is very much okay with where she's going to leave things, right? Like I think they show a scene where she's been working on this project for a long time. It kind of, this book just tickles me. Her assistant was like, you've been funded for like 30 years, right?
Oh,
Like you've been
yeah.
working on this for 30 years and you haven't been able to do whatever it is. But she seems okay with that. Like she spends her time with her niece. They're doing fun science in the backyard and it's a fun, awesome time. Whereas Henry is like, well, fuck, like I don't want to leave my character in the hands of these newfangled whatevers and they're going to mangle my legacy. I need to be around to maintain this, right? So it seems like he's not satisfied where he's at. And so whatever
No, he's not at all.
like
That's
so
a good
whatever he can
point. Like,
use to grasp at to keep going, he's going to do that.
Hmm.
okay. That's interesting.
Yeah,
But yeah, you
especially. Sorry.
No,
go ahead,
I want to
Julie.
hear what you say. I'm curious.
Well, he's been dealt completely new cards as well, right? So now his
Mhm.
past racial identity has been erased. Instead of being like a visibly black male, he's a visibly yellow potato. And the chances of
Simpsons character.
the chances of the world listening to him, the agents listening that they should not cast his grandfather's character in that television show as a white man and it should be the black man that his grandfather intended him to be. It's like he's like, well, now I can carry on that legacy because these television executives are going to listen to a potato.
Are they?
I-
Are they?
I would. I mean, I would have listened to
interpreted it
him
I want
before.
to see
No,
that
I-
board meeting in Hollywood. Like he walks in anyway.
He walks in with his like little ears.
Okay.
Well,
He
Wait, and
interpreted it
couture
differently.
fitted to the potato body. That would.
So
Yeah.
Jolie, you're kind of like saying that like sort of this procedure and the way his body is right now, it sort of is like erasing Henry's blackness. Do you think that's something that like ties into the like eugenics thing, like the eugenics angle at all? Is that something that you think the author is like
Ooh.
deliberately invoking, or is it just kind of separate from that?
Potentially. I think the more interesting thing that he writes about is that Potato Henry is more happy with the erasure of his blackness, except for Hank is not. And when they're working out together, they have a conversation about it. And he's like, well, I don't see like Potato Henry is like, I don't know why you're not.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're not happy about this. Like, and then Hank is like, I don't know why you are.
That made me so mad.
Yeah,
That
it kind of made me
so
mad
mad.
too. But it made me have a conversation with myself that was really like gratifying. Like like what if somebody put my soul sucked some of my life out and like put me into like a dog? Like how would that change how I identify?
Big Brother Edward.
Yeah.
I don't think so much like the scientist is like
Thanks.
eugenics guy, but I think it points to like how like sometimes our work has unintended consequences. And I think this dude has just been so obsessed with fixing her sister that he couldn't quite see like, what the fuck do you think this is gonna mean if it works? Like, you know?
Mhm.
And I feel like just to circle back to the sister real quick, like I feel like her kind of like arc in this book is like she is to use kind of a big word, she is self-actualizing, because I feel like her brother has like at the beginning he has like kind of fucked her up. Like he views her as this like deficient human, and that has like rubbed off on her and like impacted her own like view of herself, her own view of herself. And like as the story progresses, she like kind of begins to sort of move beyond that and like begin to develop her own view of her identity outside of how her brother sees her. And I think there's like a quote very specifically in this book, where like, so I think that the use of the vocal machine kind of symbolizes this transition, where initially she uses the wrist mounted thing and she communicates in very short sentences, and then she switches and she says the reason why she switches is because before I never had so much to say, or something like that. Yeah. And now that she's like beginning this like realization of herself, she's like realizes she has things to communicate that she never did before. And so I don't know, I feel like it's kind of moving beyond like those like fucked up perceptions that like other people, including her own brother, has, and like how that kind of impacts his work as a scientist.
You also lose at that very same time, you also lose the sister, the twin. Because everyone's saying that she's not disabled. She clearly is disfigured, and her brother is 100% to blame for that. Because that he destroyed her based on what he perceived would be beautiful for her, what would make her life better. But she continues, and this is, to me, it's sort of like a mystical part of it. I don't know, because I being a twin, I buy into the.
I think there's definitely some like mystical shit in this book.
Yeah, like I buy into the whole. Yeah, like I buy into the whole like twin mythology. Even like Lisa Fritsch gave me a book to read about the twins. I don't know if she had you read it, Mike, but it's real good. It's like weird twin stuff, but she continues to talk, even though her twin has been removed. She continues to talk to Constance in the form of the drawing in the shadow, and she eats with her twin. Bianca walks in on her and is like, "Oh, you're the admin assistant." She's like, "Oh, are you eating alone?" Yeah. And you see the Pop-Tart, but then she puts another Pop-Tart down, the one that she's eating. So
I didn't even pick up that.
And I don't know, and that's where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm obsessed with this character because of the whole twin thing. But like, it's like, does she hear? Is it like supernatural? Is this supernatural? Is it psychological? Like, I want to know.
Maybe it's both.
Yeah, it's so cool.
That reminds me. Like, you might want to look this up later, Jolie. There's like these twin girls. And they both, like, they're connected at the head. I can't remember the technical name for it. But, like, if, like, their faces are in, like, different directions a little bit. Like, I think 45-degree angle, basically. So one twin will close their eyes, and then they'll show a picture to the twin with their eyes open. And then the other twin can see it in their mind and say what it is. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah, like they can
hear each other's thoughts, and I think they call it talking in their head.
Well, that whole theme is like permeated throughout the whole story, right? Because Hank and Henry are symbiotic, even though they're not physically connected. Manuela and Molly are symbiotic that way, and then the sister and her twin Constance. Keep forgetting the daughter or the sister's name, but anyways, yeah, that theme is very, very strong in this book.
Yeah, just that idea of like being able to share a soul is really, really interesting.
Yeah, and it's
upgrade soul.
Yeah, yes.
Did they upgrade by dying?
Yeah, is it an upgrade soul or is it a shared soul?
Right.
Well, I don't know. Like
sharing
Hank and Henry, there was no upgrade there. I feel like, but
yeah, it seems inconvenient to me. Split up my soul.
Yeah. It seemed like he very much did it for his wife. And she's like, there was like no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They were doing it. And then he was like, okay, I'm in. And then she had reservations and he was like, no, we're doing this. And then they became potatoes.
But that's
Yeah.
I guess and that's I also struggle because I don't think it's the most interesting theme. Like I think like the themes around like morality, and
The theme around potatoes.
what
The theme around potatoes.
and the theme of potatoes.
The book is actually an
I like
allegory
potatoes
for
very
the
fast.
Irish
Yes,
potato
thank you.
famine.
Thank you.
And if you go back to the 18th century, no,
But I do think if there's any place to talk about it, like this is the place. The book does sort of like ask the question without like giving any easy answers. Like what makes you you? And like that's actually one of the central like conflicts. I mean, that's what Henry says to Hank before he like lets him fall down the stairs and he just like walks away. Is that like I'm not a monster, I'm you, and that's is like what is it your memories that makes you you? Is it even your genetics? They're clones. If something has your memory and your genetics, is that you? Or is it is the actual lived experience of like doing all those things more important and looking like yourself? Like, is it the interior life or the exterior life that's more important?
Like I feel like to me that the theme of identity isn't really at the forefront, because I feel like when they got turned into these new people, like it just sort of amplified who they already were. So it's not as if the new versions are like, I think, substantially different from who they were before. It's just that now it's sort of been amplified to the nth degree. Like you can kind of see that with Manuela's self-sacrifice, and then Hank's, I'm just gonna call it narcissism, because that's what it is. Just sort of like really, really amped up.
Yeah, and I mean, like they could be anything. It's I think it was Jolie saying it was like they went from being a black man to having no race. He's not even a man anymore. He could be whatever, but there's something like core to his identity where he's like has to identify as a man.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was it. You just said it. Like, there's something like he wanted to identify as a man, even though he's practically without sex.
Yeah, and I don't think that was important to Manuela. She's not like,
She kind of presented as female, though. I thought she dressed like
she
she
definitely
didn't
did.
dress in like in a Star Trek jumpsuit, and it was like very.
Well, I think they have a gender, but they
into her.
don't have a sex. Which
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and it's like he's like, I need to be like even more man. I need genitals. What are my options?
What would Judy Butler say about that?
Well, I got more than that. I thought he wanted to consummate his.
you gave me a
relationship.
super
I thought,
body,
like,
now I
that-
need super genitals.
So Oliver, I also just want to say, like, it's interesting to me, like, both Lena and I think Hank are the kinds of characters I usually gravitate to. The sort of like, I love them, like, do whatever it takes, like, fuck you all with your peon morality or whatever. I'm going to do what I want, and I'm like a problematic fave or whatever, and that's fine. Those are the kinds of characters I usually gravitate to, but not in this case for some reason. Like, like.
Is it because they're not
find-
sexy, Patrick?
Maybe they're not made of diamond. They don't wear corsets.
Is it-
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. But
I think it's because Bianca was too good. She overshadowed everyone else.
who was too good?
Bianca, you said the one that stole your life.
Maybe. Yeah.
What did you guys
Also,
think?
just quick shout out to the assistant and the her himbo boyfriend,
Garth.
Garth.
He's more than a himbo.
Is he
He had
a
a real
himbo?
job.
Are we just calling everyone a himbo? I mean, that's fine.
Sorry, what were
Yeah.
you? Were you asking a question, Mike?
Go ahead,
Yes,
Mike.
yes, I was going to ask a question. What do people think about the demise of Hank's brother?
That was sad.
That was very
Oh
tragic.
yeah,
That
that
was
Sad.
The show was fucked
that
up.
was really
Yeah, because
unnecessary. I thought it was, I don't know, it was a real bummer.
yeah, because I see it. I guess I see what Oliver's saying by Henry did very evil things, but he wasn't totally evil. He was a survivalist. Well, here's the thing. Like Lena was going to survive no matter what, and she had been living with her disfiguration, and she was supposed to be the example for the two potatoes and how you can still live a life and be disfigured. And she's like a cold murderer.
Right.
So earlier on, I thought about making a joke about how Lena is not the first young woman to indulge in dating an older man. But like here's the thing.
He's a much younger man, Oliver.
yeah, it's like it's only a year old.
True. Here's the thing. Like Lena, she is a flawed character. Most of the characters in this book are flawed characters, with like the exception of like Molly and Manuela and I guess Dell because she's a child. Like those characters not so much, but like the rest of them pretty much are all flawed characters. And I think Lena is very much the same way, where she comes to kind of see like Henry as this like escape from sort of this like horrible monotony that's been her life so far, and she kind of like latches onto him because he is like the first person in her life that has ever made her feel good about herself. He's the first person that's ever made her feel like she has value. And of course, like she's going to be eager to like try to please him. And like, yeah, it's fucked up that she like killed this like completely innocent dude in the process, but I don't know. I kind of view this like book sort of in the same way as like a Coen Brothers movie, where it's these like very flawed characters who make these like series of bad decisions, and those bad decisions lead to consequences which continue to escalate to like until they result in like catastrophe. And I kind of like view a lot of the things that happen in this book in the same way. So like I think Lena is very fucked up, but I sympathize with her.
What?
One thing I wanted.
So this is just.
Can I just make this point real quick? Just real quick. So just building off of like talking about Lena murdering, I think you got like something I wanted to point out is that she was born a conjoined twin. She had to have like the doctors made the decision to separate the twins and then the one dying. So like if there's argument to be made, because this happens with twin separation, where sometimes they'll separate them knowing that the one twin will die. So it's entirely possible like she's like that's how she came into this world, with like the doctors killing someone innocent so that she could survive. So I'm just saying like she was like born into the world like with already that kind of mindset in her, possibly. So I just wanted to point that out real quick. Okay.
Born to be bad.
Like, this is how I came into the world, and this is how I'm leaving it.
Possible.
Bad to the bone. Bad.
I have a so I think I need to sit with that. I'm not but why do you think Kenny just takes the fall? Like that is like most of the plot points I think I resolved pretty easily in my head, but like Kenny is just like, yep, I'll take the fall for Cliff's death, or I go maybe he wrote it out because he can't talk at the moment, but
I mean, but who knows? I mean, can he talk? I don't.
No.
No.
Doesn't, of all the characters in this story, isn't it the scientist who's the most heinous and like evil and deserves to take the fall for everything?
I don't want to call him. It doesn't. I mean, he's an asshole. He's irritating. He's unpleasant. I don't think he's evil. Like I don't think he's set out to
I don't think
purposefully do all of these morally reprehensible things. It's just that he does not think about the effects, like the implications of what he is doing and why he's doing them. which
Or
also
he's thought about it and doesn't care.
it does, or maybe. I mean, this is why you're doing your work in an abandoned like hotel rather than a lab. Like,
That should have been your first tip off.
who would tell you like this is not a thing you should be doing. Like this is not a thing. You should no.
I don't think there's any characters in this comic that are like evil in the conventional like sense. I don't know. I think it does that thing that a lot of like very good writing does, where all of the characters are like flawed people, and they do very like horrible, fucked up shit, but you can kind of understand why, from their point of view, they have done these things. And it doesn't make those things justified, but it does to some extent make them understandable.
Sympathetic.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty clear why every character like makes the decision that they do, which I appreciate, like the characterization. The characterization is really great in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like Mike was saying, like the weird posing that Henry was doing on the bed. Like that's a great character note. Like
fucking king shit.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, he's like, let's go test ride these new potato bodies. Let's see what these potatoes can do.
Hey, you want to mash these potatoes together?
Oh no!
Make some gravy?
Aw.
It went from bad
I'm
to
sorry.
worse.
I'll leave the group. I'll leave the call.
No, he just wanted to see if he could make potato tots.
Oh.
Oh my goodness!
Mike Frisch saved it.
Saved it.
So like back
man.
to what Lena did. I think like as far as we know, like she has never been in any kind of relationship with anyone.
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't imagine how that would happen.
And even like, I mean, just, you know, us, like, you know, the normies, like, I mean, first love, it's kind of a thing, right? Like, you're just feeling all kinds of like ride or die stuff. And she was riding and dying, ride or die, right? So.
Well, Cliff was dying, not her.
That's true. But she was going all the way. I mean,
she was riding.
Mm-hmm.
He was dying.
Oh, man.
But I mean, like, she wasn't trying to, like, there was the health problems and the concern about Henry being able to leave Hank if they were both alive. And, like, his response when finding out that Hank is dead was like, oh, I'm still alive. This is great. It was like, and that was kind of always the plan, the unstated plan of what they were going to do. So it was like, I didn't feel like she's like, well, time to kill. It's like this is what needs to be done.
Yeah, no, I mean, she made it right. Like, it's sort of like the feeling was that they were going to have to make a choice between one of the two. Like, inevitably, one of them was going to die. She just like actually like pulled the trigger, like put the needle plunger down, I guess. But like everybody was making the assumption that like one of them were going to have to die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just unfortunately, she'd never seen Hank ever.
Yeah.
I know.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Oops.
Oh,
She assumed he looked like that stud.
Oh my.
One thing I also really like about this book, just to shift gears super quick, is, I mean, and this kind of ties into like the theme around like bodies and like kind of our perception of that, is I like that like the characters in this book all look like real people. None of them are idealized in any way. Like, it kind of almost like it kind of shows that like very sort of like idealized form of like the super buff guy when they're gonna make the bodies, but then it comes out super lumpy. And even all the other characters, none of them are like super hot or anything like that. They all look like normal people.
Yeah, none of them are supermodels.
And I really like that choice because I feel like if it went the way of your clones are better than you in every way, like I just feel like that would be more distracting. Like I feel this enables the author to get at these themes a lot better had he instead made the clones like idealized in that physical way.
That's actually a really good point. I never thought about that. Like if he had made them like look like Mattel dolls,
Right.
it would have not had the same impact. I like that idea. Yeah.
Do we think the potato people would have eventually grown into full adult humans, or
Into
just
sweet
always been-
potatoes.
No.
Oh,
Okay, how do we kick Jolie out of the group?
You can't, bitch. I'm the host.
you're the HBIC.
You
Foiled again!
mute Oliver.
That's what you should just do every meeting, Jolie. How have you not learned that lesson yet?
I am a little surprised we never get put in timeout. I'm afraid it's going to happen in the future.
Oh
I'm
my
going to drink more.
God. Okay, that's fine.
But yeah, like there's also people are talking about like humans achieving immortality by uploading our consciousness to the cloud, but I remember people talking about like if you do that, like you're not gonna be able to time it like right when you die. You'll still be alive. There'll just now be two of you.
Yeah.
So it's like what do you think is going to happen? No, it's going to be what do you do? Like who has legal rights? It's if you own something, which one of you gets it? Who gets to spend your money? Who gets to spend your Bitcoin because now you're digital? So
There's a Hulu show called Upload that deals with that, and if you upload to the cloud, they vaporize your head. So there's only one of you.
There's no risk.
Excuse me though, that's on Amazon Prime, so just by
Is
the
it?
way,
Oh.
yeah, just FYI there.
but yeah,
Robbie
they were
and
talking about.
Mel.
But yeah, no, it's like they were talking about like we're gonna clone you. Well, what'll happen to the last one? And it's just like that has been like for whatever reason we're thinking about it now, and people are thinking about it now. Like you upload your brain to a robot body.
Did anybody ever see the movie The Prestige with Christian Bale?
Yeah, that was so disturbing.
There was cloning in that, and he used it. Hugh Jackman, I think, was the guy who was doing all the cloning, and he used the cloning to make himself a more famous magician. Like he would disappear from over here and then appear from over there, and the person actually who was appearing from over there was his clone. But he had to continually. Did he kill all of his clones? Or he just put them in jars or something like that?
I assume they were killed.
They were
They drowned.
They drowned. Right. There were hundreds of them that drowned, and it was always the next clone that kind of like took over. I just spoiled the movie for you if you haven't seen it, but it's still worth it.
I think it's okay that we passed the statute of
Yeah.
limitations.
I love that
This
line
episode needs a spoiler.
where
What was that,
I love that line where at the end he's like, "How do you know which one of you is gonna end up in the tank?" And he's like, "I never know," because
That's how I was the real magician.
yeah, when he teleports, one of them drowns to death, one lives.
That's right. Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
that's creepy.
it is.
We should have just done it the way the other one did. Have a secret twin. Oh, I spoiled the other part.
Isn't a clone a secret twin that you make?
No, it's a twin you don't tell anyone about.
Yeah.
You
Exactly,
lock
that's
in
my secret.
the closet. Wow. I'm thinking about all kinds of stuff now in my head, and I'm like, oh my God. Like this, I love this
That's
book
what
for
it's
that
like
reason.
in my head.
It never stops.
So
Think
Jolie,
about
do you
all kinds of
remember
crazy stuff?
how did the other conversation go?
Yeah, let's compare contrast for a minute.
Tell us how this is so much better. No, I'm just kidding. How did that other
I
conversation?
don't know. Carlos might remember it better because he just has a better memory for things that I remember. But I remember not like, I don't know what it was about this book that I just didn't like. It just, I felt like it was too cerebral and I guess I just wasn't ready for it. It was like when I first saw The Matrix in high school, I was just not, it didn't click. It took a few viewings to be like, oh, okay. Now I understand what The Matrix is.
You did not take the right pill at the time, but now you did.
Right?
Yeah,
All right.
I don't know.
I
Do you
had to,
remember?
I do remember reading like half of this and then stopping halfway through and restarting. And it definitely helped because like the first time through, and not even all the way through, I was having, some problems with it. And then like, I left it and then finished it, but yeah, no, it definitely starts off very confusing.
Yeah, I remember being confused the first time I read it, and then picking it up this time, it was like butter.
Yeah.
I don't remember how the conversation went.
Maybe it's the spell of COVID is making this like being kind of separated from your real life and your real self. So it's resonating better.
Perhaps.
I am my clone.
Yeah, I do feel like I'm in a weird alternate reality most of the time.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't right. Something happened, and real me is out there somewhere, and I don't know how to get back.
Oh, you're at a restaurant, Lucy.
Oh, man. The Denny's, probably.
Not a Asian, what do they call it? What's that place over there, Lucy?
A buffet?
No, the weird Asian steak.
The roast beef.
Yes, that place.
Oh, those places.
Yeah.
Benihana?
No. Benihana's. What was it? What is that place called? You know what I'm talking about, right? Asian corned beef? Is that
Asian
it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now I get what you're going for. Because I was thinking something else.
Me too.
It's
The Detroit original.
Not that far.
With
Yeah.
with the woman with the ample chest.
When the border is lifted, we'll make a field trip to one, and then you will experience it yourself. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to drive back to Windsor
Okay, all right.
specifically for this place.
I mean, like, I wouldn't get my hope. Keep your expectations low, but yeah.
It's a local chain, and it's also the most significant thing about it is that it's in throughout Detroit, and it's open till like 4 a.m.
Sean, Sean just dropped a link in the chat. www.asiancornbeef.com.
And I'm at pains to see.
I love
what's
how
Asian
this
about it.
episode is brought to you by Asian corned
I know.
beef.
Yeah.
We should
Not
all
sponsored.
get a coupon.
Not sponsored.
I think that's a sign. We've come full circle. We should redo the scores.
Corned beef
I think.
egg rolls. This looks delicious.
Oh boy. I'm guessing Mike has not experienced it.
That sounds like a paid advertisement.
I know. I'm like, how much are they paying you?
Just appropriate amount of.
Oh,
enthusiasm.
Oliver, are you muted?
I'm gonna check that out tomorrow.
Oh my. All right.
They also have like a whole platter of deviled eggs, which seemed kind of gross.
Ugh. Oh.
Also, they have
That's-
koi fit. They have an aquarium, which I believe is how they get to call themselves Asian, because that was the only Asian thing I could identify.
Can
Yeah.
you buy the eggs and feed them to the koi fish?
No,
No, it's-
never.
No, do not feed those to the fish. No.
Oh,
It's egg rolls that are
okay.
stuffed with corned beef. Like that's
Basically.
why it's Asian corned beef.
So it's sort of like a beef Wellington.
Yeah.
But the pastry is egg.
Or egg roll or whatever the wonton wrapper. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can't
no.
even.
It's
America truly is a land of horrors.
I apologize
It's
for
a
the
melting
diversion.
pot.
We can come back now.
I'm sorry,
Come back. I'm
melting
sorry.
pot.
Let's come back.
All right, back to the book. Back to the
Now,
book.
I don't know what it is, but like, yeah, I'm having the same reaction. Like, I want some corned beef egg rolls right now. I think it's because I didn't eat dinner.
Well, it doesn't matter what we put in front of you, Carlos. I mean, you would.
Yeah, no, it's the caveat.
Right.
If I had to choose anything, I'd choose Asian corned beef spring rolls. Oh my
Full disclosure,
God.
we are not getting paid for this. So
No.
if you want to pay us, though, that's totally fine.
You don't hear me right now?
Yeah, so it's on 7
Yeah.
Mile, huh? Okay.
Oh, there's a number of locations.
Okay.
There's one in downtown, or not downtown, but anyhow.
I love
Which
how
reminds
Keith is,
me-
I love how Keith is intimately familiar with all of the locations of this establishment.
I feel like
and
he's
it's-
a true, like, Detroit dirty food connoisseur.
Mm.
He was like, have you ever heard of water ice? And I was like,
What?
is that what it's called, Keith?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the best thing in the world. It's just like a slushie,
All right.
but like
Did we-
elevated.
Did we lose Oliver?
I don't know. Can you hear
Oh,
me right now?
We can hear you
Yes,
now.
yeah.
I can hear
Yeah,
you.
okay.
Okay.
I could see you were trying to talk and nothing was coming through.
Yeah,
I was very confused, and like Mike Fritsch sent me a weird message. He said, "Love the lip movements, Oliver," and I was like, "Is that
Are
a
you
sex
hitting
thing,
on me?
Mike?
Are you
What's
hitting
going
on
on
me?
here?"
lips were moving, but you weren't making any noise. I thought
You know what? Don't shut me down, Mike. Let a man fantasize. Let a man think for a moment that someone was admiring
No.
the sensuality of his lip movements.
Go-
Let me have this, Mike. Let me have this.
You said to Jolie something about, don't mute me, Jolie. And then, like, the next thing I know, I'm looking at you and your lips are going, but there's no sound.
Damn it, Jolie.
I like
mean-
Asian corned beef and Oliver's sensual lips.
Cancel culture has struck again.
This
Yo,
toast, Ruben.
talking about Oliver's sensual lips reminds me of a good upgrade. So
His starchy
Yeah, the fact
potato
that-
lips. Yeah.
Mhm.
He's a potato zaddy.
Hank is a potato that fucks.
Oh boy.
Explicitly, he is not.
Potato fuck.
He's working on it, Carlos. He's working on
You know-
it. Should we wrap up?
Yeah, do you know what?
Yeah, I think we will.
It is a quarter
It's
to 9.
dangerously silly.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, we're
Dangerously
learning
silly.
Carlos's narrow definition of sex. I mean,
That's true. That's true.
We know.
So, Lucy, do you want to lead us around the circle?
Oh boy. Well, this was quite a talk.
Also,
I
real
like that
quick.
we.
We never even mentioned like the fact that this book takes place in the 90s. I don't know if that's important or not. I just realized that's something that we never even mentioned during this discussion. I don't know.
2017.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
guess
we
I
didn't
didn't
talk
notice
about the time setting.
I didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
it's just
well-
because it was so focused on like being in the hotel and the clones and the dynamic of that like the time setting was less important, which was refreshing because woof, that would have been too much to absorb if there were all these little 90s things going on too. That we were like wink wink nudge nudge, sure it's 90s in here.
It
That
sort
would've
of
been too
feels
much.
like it's out of time. Like it feels like it's obviously very modern, but it almost also feels like a sci-fi movie from the 50s. Like
Mm.
there's
Yeah.
almost like this what has science done like feeling that is like very like 1950s sci-fi.
It's very Black Mirror-esque.
Yeah.
A more
Yeah.
contemporary example, perhaps.
Yeah.
But Lucy, you were going to lead us off.
Yes.
Proceed.
Okay. Man, I want to bump up the story to a 9, but leave the art at like an 8.5. Even though I really like the art, he's very influenced by Daniel Clowes. And that was one thing I wanted to mention real quick is like the part with Henry on the bed. It very much reminded me of A Velvet Glove Cast in Iron, where that potato character was also on a bed trying to be sexy. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Yes.
I don't know this, but I'm Googling it.
You should read that comic. It's very, very good.
A Velvet
But
Glove
anyway,
Cast in Iron.
that's the one. But it was like a nice little shout out to him, I think, in a way with that, because it's kind of, it reminded me of that. Anyway, yeah, the story I'll give a 9. Art I'll give an 8.5. Let's go with Jolie and hear her thoughts.
Thanks, Lucy. I will bump mine up. And I knew I was going to, because I knew that this conversation was going to get real good. But I did not know it would devolve into Asian corned beef, which is also real good, and is probably in real life real good. I trust your palate, Keith, and Sean. I don't know that Sean has had it, but he's definitely like chatting about it, and now I want to know more about these people. But anyway,
I had it without the wrapper. I had the egg rolled it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, corned beef is corned beef, right?
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it's always wonderful. You really gotta like F it up. Anyway, I had it at a 7.8. I'm going to bump the story to an 8.5, and then I'm going to give the art, because I realized I didn't do 2 separate scores. I'm going to give the art a 9. I really, really enjoy the art. Daniel Clowes is one of my favorite artists, and I really enjoy and that little tidbit about him being a technical artist is something that I was like, ooh, I need to know more about this Ezra. And yeah.
Right? He's so cool.
Yeah.
So nice.
I'm going to like search out anything else he's ever done and just like look at it.
He's thinking about doing another, like a sequel to this.
Oh,
and I'm very interested to see if that happens.
Weird.
It's going to be more focused on the daughter, I think. Like, what's the kid?
Yeah.
Like her growing up.
Ooh, that'd
I'm
be
very
awesome.
interested to see if that pans out. I know.
Yeah, it'd be really great if they addressed the death of the brother too, because they kind of like let that one sit.
A little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, 8.5 and then 9 for the art. And I will throw it to Carlos.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna bump it up to just a general 9. Like, it is really, really good. I feel like not many things like it exist, and the art is really good, and the story is fascinating. I'm gonna bump it up to a 9, and I'm on his website right now, and his other book that came out last year, or 2 years ago, depending on how you consider time during a pandemic, looks really good as well.
Yeah, it was a collaboration with
Ben Pascal.
Yeah, another Vault of Midnight Book Club book, Your Black Friend.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
So we should read
Really
that
good.
next year. When nominations come around. Let's make it an Ezra Claytan Daniels year.
Yeah.
And let's see who's next. Patrick, go ahead.
I think I'll bump it up to 8.5. Thank you for the discussion, particularly Oliver for making me see Lena in a whole new sort of femme fatale kind of a light, which I totally appreciate.
He's legit my favorite character in this book. She rocks.
Femme fatale Lena. Yeah, it was very fascinating take on this theme, and I really also enjoyed the art, which reminds me of Adrian Alphona's stuff, is what it reminds me of.
That's interesting, because that wasn't a name he threw around. Like, Ezra didn't throw that name around at all, so that's interesting.
Her friend Ezra.
Your friend Ezra. Alex.
Whatever.
Go on.
I'm going to keep mine on 8.5. I really love the artwork. I thought the story was fascinating. I'll definitely give it a reread, because there's stuff I missed that I'll have to read again to see. Mike F.
I did 9 the first time. I'll keep it at a 9. There was one thing that the very first thing that struck me about the art, though, I didn't mention yet. The sense of movement that I got in reading this book, it's just more than any other book I've ever read. I could just see the characters moving from one particular panel to the next. All the characters, it was just amazing that way. So, Keith.
Gave it an 8.5, but I'll raise it up to 9 just because I am such good personal friends with the author, you know. But I'll give him that. But
My boy Ezra.
He did like 50 of those that day, Keith. Calm down.
Don't tear Keith down like this. Kings support kings.
Oh boy.
But yeah, it's yeah. I forgot how hard it was to get into it the first time, but then like when you go through it again, like how much I enjoyed it, you know, and so yeah, no, it's
like
just
reading really pays off.
Yes, I definitely yeah, but yeah, it's a hard book to read, especially when you know what's coming. It's like it's so overwhelmingly sad, and it's like, man, it's just really good at doing that. So it's really effective. So, but yeah, no, it's I don't know how many people I could recommend it to, but I definitely am very glad that I read it. Just because I don't know if other people can just handle the sadness and the weirdness.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sean, have you gone?
Oh no, I'm gonna keep it the same though. A 9, then 9, and just didn't like the faces. But other than that, I like the faces of the cats and the rabbits were great, and the potatoes.
Accurate.
Before we stop, I also just noticed the cover, and I love that the figure sort of posed in this kind of like sensual way. That I just did not notice that when I picked it up.
Like a geisha with
Sort
a
of, a little
fan.
bit.
Yeah,
I don't think Alex has gone yet.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
yes.
no, excellent. Yeah.
He can go again if he wants, though. I mean,
Joel,
Alex
did you-
round
did you go,
2.
Jolie?
Yeah.
Alex Reloaded. Alex Electric Boogaloo.
oh, Joe,
You, Alex,
mute
you're
him
fast.
again, please. Oh,
What?
mute him again.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding.
I muted myself, fucker.
Lips
I
are
was like-
moving again. Look.
You know they share this in a PG-13 audience, right? Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
Now I have to mark it adult.
Oh,
Great.
I listen to this in my class
Oh,
every time.
You do what?
No, I do not.
This stream cannot be PG-13. The raw sexuality that emits from this group, it's too much. It's too much.
I mean,
Yeah.
you got Mike
we
in
are
in a
sexy
dollhouse
comic book
bedroom.
lovers in your area.
I mean, I was mainly talking about Carlos, but
wow.
You know, there's a reason we didn't pull any of the illustrations from the book and like share them. It's too graphic. That potato body is too much.
Yeah.
It's actually
For young minds.
Like there are a couple of graphic sections, but it's mostly like emotionally graphic. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's really hard to look at.
very much.
Yeah.
can't wait for this group to finally review Tarot, Witch of the Rose, and Sunstone. Anyway,
Omaha the Cat Dancer. We should do an Omaha the Cat Dancer.
Hey, Pat, what's up for next month?
So next month was actually Eric's pick, but I chatted with him because he can't make it, and I will be guest hosting it, which is really appropriate anyway. We will be doing Jonathan Hickman's much ballyhooed X-Men reboot, House of X, Powers.
I've got
Oh
that.
yeah. Oh, this is up your alley. Yeah.
I'm glad nobody called on me for my final score.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Oliver. Please.
I'm raising it to an 8.75. I don't think it completely 100% sticks the landing, but I think it's very good, and I enjoyed the discussion a lot. You've all hurt my feelings immeasurably. No,
We're very sorry,
Aw.
Oliver.
Oliver.
I'm a big boy. I can handle it. I'm used to being
Aw.
disappointed.
What did you get, Carlos?
Oh, this is the book.
Oh,
Yep.
fuck yeah.
Oh,
So it's kind of a mainstreamy superhero comic. So with those caveats, I don't know if any of you have read a Jonathan Hickman production before, but he loves doing these sort of data text pages. So just be prepared for that. It's kind of like, I mean, you've read Watchmen. There was like the stuff in the back. It's kind of like that.